Good morning. Thank you for your patience. We've just been trying to figure out what we're doing here. Welcome to Business Incubation 101. This is our first attempt at doing this, so please be patient with us. Our business incubation program started in 2005, and we've had varying levels of financial support since that started, but in this administration, I am happy to say there's a great deal of support for business incubation, and we know that there's some interest from communities out there, and it looks like there's about 100 of you on this call, so that's really nice. Let's get started so that we have plenty of time for questions. My name is Elizabeth Davis. I have been responsible for this program since it started in 2005. Also with us today are Shaunie Harvey, who is the coordinator for our JEDI office, Justice, Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion. Marie Longserre is president and CEO of the Santa Fe Business Incubator. Dana Catron is deputy director of Arrowhead Center. Agnes Noonan is president of WESST, and Josue Olivares is executive director of the Rio Grande Community Development Corporation, which operates the South Valley Economic Development Center. The certification program was established in 2005, as I said. It was the brainstorm of Marie Longserre, who's with us today, and Roy Miller, who for many years ran the New Mexico Small Business Development Centers. It defines a process to certify an incubator facility using best practices which have been established by the International Business Innovation Association, formerly Business Incubation. There is an application on our website, and we're going to go through the components of that this morning, most especially the feasibility study, which is something that's very important to a sustainable incubator, and you'll learn more about that from Agnes in a few minutes. The secretary, the cabinet secretary, Alicia Keys, she is the one who is ultimately responsible for certifying an incubator according to the statute. And these are the 7 incubator facilities that are currently certified by the state. I should also add that you have to be certified in order to receive any funding from any state agency. So, Shani.
Thank you, Elizabeth.
Thanks.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here. My name is Shaunie Harvey. I'm the JEDI program manager for the Economic Development Department, Justice, Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion. My role in the department is that I work one-on-one with business owners and entrepreneurs to connect them to services in our department, but also I am really trying to be aware of the ecosystem throughout New Mexico. So I refer folks to the business support organizations that you all work for often. So me being here is just really to show that when it comes to business incubation, making sure that communities obviously have their community in mind as we develop these programs, but also making sure that it's tailored to those needs and the interests and the industries that your communities tend to open businesses in. So making sure that that is of utmost priority, and also helping that as these incubators do get established, that I'm familiar with the sorts of businesses that you all do help, so that when I have business owners coming to me looking for resources and asking where to go next, that I can point them to the right incubator if that's the space that they need, or if they need training or something else. That's kind of why I am here, and also kind of promoting from the back end to make sure that we're reaching business owners equally, and making sure that our programs and the questions that we're asking and all the things that we're doing are making sure that we're going to treat all New Mexican business owners equitably and make sure that they have an equal chance at running their business. I'll be hiring another JEDI along with myself is already hired. So I'll be hiring a new JEDI coordinator come the next fiscal year. So really the role there is going to be to market existing state services and expand financing options for socially and economically disadvantaged communities, and also act as a support and advocate. So connecting with your resource and support organizations is really important for me, that I know the work that you all are doing, so I know when to send a business over your way And just so that we're familiar that we're all here working together, I just try to help business owners navigate the ecosystem more fluidly. So connecting with the community and community support organizations is really what I am focused on. So I'm here today to be of a support and ally. So if I can be of any support, please reach out to me. My contact information was on that last slide. So there's my number down at the bottom, or maybe it's up. I don't know what your view is. So go ahead. I'm happy to support you, happy to support your community. If you're a business owner or if you work for a community support organization, I'd love to sit down and chat with you about what you're doing for your community so that I can help folks better connect with their own community. So that's all I have, and I'll pass it off to Marie Longserre with the Santa Fe Business Incubator to jump into our business incubation overview. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Shaunie. Hi, I'm Marie Longserre. I'm the president and the CEO of the Santa Fe Business Incubator. I've been in that role for 25 years and 2 months now, I just found out or realized. So I've learned a lot about business incubation, not only here in New Mexico, but across the country and around the world. It's a program that got started back in the 1960s, grew in the 1980s, and is now based in the United States, is now global. In almost every country in the world, you'll find business incubation. So what is it? I have on the screen, it's an organization or program designed to enhance the economy by helping launch and accelerate entrepreneurial businesses through support and services. In the state of New Mexico, I want to give a shout out to the others besides Roy Miller and I, also Carol Radosevich, Jasper Welch, Chuck Wellborn, and a number of our legislators worked very hard in 2005 and before to define what business incubation means. And the reason that was necessary is, to this day, there are a lot of terms that are tossed around, an accelerator, an incubator, an innovation center, or so forth. So people were wondering, what defines a business incubator? In the state of New Mexico, it is a combination of a program that helps startup companies launch and grow, a place, a physical location where those companies can start their businesses and grow their businesses and have a place to operate out of, and a network of people. We want our business incubators to help people access capital, markets, expertise, etc. If we go to the next slide. So there are some sort of characteristics that define a business incubator: having a professional staff that runs it and manages the programs and manages the facility. The facility needs to be appropriate for the type of businesses that are in the community or that is the focus of the business incubator. We have a mixed use incubator. There can be any kind of business in there, but we do have a number of sectors that are growing within our business incubator: advanced manufacturing, service businesses, biotech, technology, digital film and media, etc. There should be an application and graduation process. A business incubator is not a place for a company to start and live forever. It's a place for a company to start in their earliest years when they're very fragile and their chance of failure is very high, and they have this support and training and they have a safe and professional place to be. But maybe that lasts for 2 or 4 years. With a biotech company, it could be longer, but most companies in about 4 years would then be expected to move out into their communities and take other space and grow and create jobs. I mentioned client assistance programs and processes, and there's a lot of importance attached to collecting data about our company's economic impact. The whole point of business incubation is to enhance your economy by helping startups succeed, grow, attract capital, create revenue, pay their taxes, create good jobs, offer good benefits, create career paths for people, and diversify your economy. Here at the Business Incubator in Santa Fe, we really don't have a lot of retail businesses that are geared toward retail tourism, hotels, that kind of thing. There are some, but basically the kind of businesses and companies we're growing here diversify our economy to make it more even in different times of downturn. I think that's most of it, because you're going to hear a little bit more about other types of programs like accelerators and pre-incubation and other kind of startup help that a community can give to startups later, and some other information about becoming a business incubator certified in New Mexico. I will mention, it's on the slide here, if a community is thinking about starting a business incubator or launching a pilot program for building a business incubator, a feasibility study is required by the state of New Mexico prior to launching the program and prior to applying for certification. It's a very expensive and long-term commitment to build the infrastructure and the staffing and the networks and the programs to have business incubation. And it's a really good idea to make sure that the community has the market, the number of participants, the will, champions in that community, and the ability to make it work in the long term. It's a long-term investment that pays really well for communities that do invest in it, but there is sort of a critical mass that is required to build it out. The National Business Incubation Association and the Economic Development Administration of the U.S. Department of Commerce have estimated that for each public dollar that goes into a successful business incubator, about $45 is returned in taxes and economic impact for every dollar spent, which is a great return. I wish I could get that any day. Anyway, I would be happy to answer other questions, and I'm going to turn it back to Beth and to our next presenter.
Thank you very much, Marie. Our next presenter is Dana Catron. Dana is the Deputy Director of Arrowhead Center, and they do a lot of amazing things. Thank you, Dana.
Thank you, and I'm sorry my lighting is pretty terrible in my office, but my name is Dana Catron. I am the Deputy Director of Arrowhead Center. We are an extension of New Mexico State University, so we are the IP and Tech Transfer Office, and then we also have our incubator, and we offer a number of different programming and entrepreneurial support throughout the state. So one of the things that comes up when talking about business incubation is how is it different than other programs and services that other support organizations offer, or that you can offer in your community without having a physical space. So some examples of these: accelerators, we'll talk a little bit more about that on the next slide, co-working spaces, consulting services, technical assistance support, coaching and mentoring, training and technical assistance, associations and local chambers, and then other public programs like through universities, community colleges, economic development departments, COGS, things like that. Incubators, if you have a physical, oh, sorry, can you go back just really quick?
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. If you have a business incubator, you may have one or all of these things, right? And so, but if you have only one or even all of these things, that does not mean you have a business incubator. So we're trying to clarify that a little bit. And sorry, next slide now, Elizabeth. Okay, so An example that we'll kind of dissect, accelerators. These are really, really popular these days. There's a lot of variation in how different organizations run accelerators. I know here at Arrowhead, we run many different kinds, everything from sprint accelerators to very specific SBIR and STTR accelerators. So there's a lot of different models, but typically an accelerator model, you're always going to have some kind of application process, right? So the startups or the businesses will have to complete an application and they'll have to be vetted, and they're usually put into a cohort type program. Depending on the type of accelerator, it's going to be made up of a cohort from anywhere from, I've seen 4 or 5 startups up to 20 startups. So I mean, there's a lot of variation in how these cohorts are comprised. There's often weekly teaching sessions. Since COVID, everyone went virtual. I know a lot of people now are going back to in-person models or hybrid models. Again, lots of flexibility in how you can do that. Some key characteristics across the board for accelerators, definitely mentorship. So there's going to be a ton of mentorship by whichever organization is putting on the accelerator to the participants. Again, an example for us is we encourage all of our participants across the board to do weekly one-on-one sessions with us, to reach out. We have a pretty extensive enterprise advisor network that they can take advantage of, things like that. Usually there will be access to tools and resources, curriculum, etc. And then local models, so again, using ours as an example, are usually pretty easy to deploy virtually and can target specific communities, specific industries. There's, again, a ton of flexibility in how you can run an accelerator. So it's a great model to use if you're just trying to inject some really intense targeted business support to businesses or startups in your community. So who are they for? Again, this depends on the accelerator. So this can be anything from startups who are at the idea stage of technology development to the growth stage of technology development. This is based on traditional accelerators. We do, so like at Arrowhead, we have some accelerators that are not technology based. And so that's a little, that's not as typical, but we found there's a need to have that kind of cohort based support for, say, mom and pop shop businesses who are trying to recover from COVID. Not the typical accelerator model, but very effective for what we were trying to do for that group of businesses. So there's a lot of differentiation there too. Again, talking about the more traditional accelerators that are targeting technology development, a lot of them do require a MVP that has been validated in some way. Some, though, are designed to provide validation. So again, a lot of flexibility depending on who's running it, who's targeted, things like that. Services that they provide. So again, we kind of touched on this, but things like access to networks, mentors, tools, resources, curriculum, all of those different things. Many offer financial support, some do, some don't. And then there's always going to be skills development, training, things like that. And then lastly, how long do they last? Again, this can differ based on the accelerator, but they do, one of the big differentiating factors between incubators and accelerators is accelerators are always bound by a set time frame. So they have a start date and they have a finish date. That time frame ranges everything from multi-week to multi-month. Usually they're never over a year. That would be more of the incubator model. Accelerators are meant to be very, very quick and fast targeted support. Next slide.
Dana, I just had a question I wanted to pop in with you just while we were on your slides. I do see a lot of other questions coming in. I just want you to all know I've been putting some answers in there, but also when we get to the end, we'll also go refer back to these questions. But I'm sorry, Dana?
Yeah.
There's a question about what is MVP. On the last slide, there was something that some businesses might need an MVP there at the bottom right corner. Can you elaborate? Thank you.
Sure. So MVP is minimal viable product. Again, that's more of a technology term if you're in the tech development space. We also talk about TRL levels, technology readiness levels. It's basically the stage at which your technology or product is at. And so by saying many require an MVP that has been validated, it's beyond the idea stage, right? Again, though, I want to preface this by saying it depends on the accelerator. So at Arrowhead, we run a ton of accelerators that are focused on the idea stage and providing that validation so that you can go on to get SBIRS, TTR funds, or be more prepared for investment if that's what you're looking for. So I hope that answered the question. Next slide, and I'm sorry, I can't see the question, so Elizabeth, next slide, please.
Oh, I went the wrong way? No?
Nope, just one forward. There we go. Okay, so, oops. Go too far. Go, I think 2 forward now. There we go, that one.
I'm
Okay,
sorry.
so
Terrible at this.
so my last slide is additional business support programs. So like Marie said, getting an incubator, especially a state certified incubator, is a long and pretty intense process. If your community is not quite at that stage yet, there are still other programs and things that you can take advantage of and start without being an incubator. So things like a co-working space. I know a lot of our incubators also offer co-working spaces where basically anybody can come in and we usually have desks set up. At Arrowhead, we have space with computers and without computers, so people can just set up, come in, work for a couple hours, leave, work for a full day, leave. It's very flexible in how they use that space. Consulting. This is, again, a great resource for your local businesses, your local startups, just providing that business consulting. You don't have to have a formal incubator structure to be able to provide that support. And then one of the things we always like to do and that we encourage communities to do is to leverage existing programs and resources that are already there in your community. So small business development centers, these are funded through the Small Business Administration. They are a great resource for any business who is trying to start, grow. They have expertise in many different areas of business starting and development. So great to take advantage of. If you have businesses who are looking at contracting and procurement, PTACs are a great resource. They provide, again, free assistance to small businesses who are trying to navigate that process. SCORE is it's actually a national network of mentors and ex-executives, essentially, and they, again, provide free consulting and mentoring to businesses. And we have a great SCORE chapter here in New Mexico, and they're spread out across the state. Every city and community will have a local chamber of commerce. We definitely advise talking to them, working with them, collaborating with them, because they are on the ground working with this community. State programs through NMEDD, things like JTIP, their startup grants, SBIR matching program, they have great resources that businesses can take advantage of. And then lastly, a lot of the, actually I can say definitely all of the 3 large research institutions, so us, New Mexico Tech, and UNM, and then a lot of the community colleges and other universities all have support programs for businesses, and we are always willing to talk to you to provide assistance, things like that. So please reach out to us. It's an open invitation to reach out to me, to NMSU. We're happy to direct you to the appropriate resources in your community. And then also, again, the EDDs and COGS. COGS are Council of Governments, and EDDs are Economic Development Districts. Again, great resources. They're there to support economic development, and so they're a great resource to take advantage of. And I think that is the last of my slides, Elizabeth. Thank you.
Give me just a second, everyone. Beth, can you?
I think I don't know how I muted myself, but can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, sorry. Our next presenter is Agnes Noonan. Agnes is president of WESST, an organization that has been helping businesses get started for 33 years. Thank you, Agnes. Take it away.
And let's just your mic and we're good to go. Let's see.
Agnes, can you unmute?
There we go. I see you're green, so we should be able to hear you.
Good morning, everybody. Sorry about that. So welcome to be here with you all. I get to talk for a few minutes about one of my favorite topics as it relates to business incubation, and that's really about the feasibility study. I just want to underscore something Marie Longserre said a few minutes ago about this business incubation process isn't a long-term investment. When we conducted our feasibility study for the West Enterprise Center here in Albuquerque, it took about 2.5 years. So it very definitely was a long-term investment. So I just want to go through now some of the essential questions. If your community is thinking about a business incubator, what are some of these questions and how might you go about getting the answers to them? Essentially, that's what the feasibility study is really identifying every question you can possibly think of and then trying to identify what those answers are. The first part of the study really is to try and determine whether your community really, is there a need and a demand for a business incubator, and how do you know? One of the ways we did that is we did kind of a citywide survey and partnered with the Spano Chamber of Commerce at the time. But you're really trying to get input from, I would say, both existing businesses who might be able to, chime in on the question, had there been an incubator when they were around, or certainly people in your community who are thinking about starting a business. You really want to get that input from them. And as you're talking to these folks, you really want to identify what are they interested in? What is preventing them from kind of developing their business? Have they identified what would be helpful? Are there specific services? Marie again mentioned the kind of typical services in a business incubator that have to do with training, kind of the one-on-one coaching and consulting, access to capital, access to other resources in the community. And so you're really trying to understand from the people in your community, what is it that they need, and have they identified what would be helpful to them to grow their business. And in terms of services, and I think this gets a little trickier, the more you get away from some of our larger cities in the state. But if you're hearing that people in your community do want all of the services, training and consulting, et cetera, are they currently available in your community? There may be opportunities for you to partner with other business support organizations to provide these services. You're also going to want to take a look during the feasibility study, next slide please, on what kind of facility you're thinking about. There are, as Marie pointed out, different kinds of incubators. Some are very specifically focused on one industry, and others are, as in our case, as the Santa Fe Business Incubator, mixed use, which means we have a variety of different kinds of businesses. Another major consideration is going to be whether you've identified a potential facility. Is this something that already exists in your community? Would you have to buy the facility? Might you talk to local government officials if they have vacant properties that they might be willing to partner with you on in terms of turning that in to an incubation facility? And of course, the key question, whether you're going to rent, lease, remodel an existing structure, how are you going to pay for it? Another key question as you're thinking about that is how will you charge the tenants who inhabit your incubator? Next slide. In terms of the program design, again, we've talked about the kinds of services that should be offered in a certified business incubator. But you'll also need to think about what are going to be everything from your process for kind of marketing the incubator and your process for admitting a company. Some incubators set up admissions committees, which is comprised of folks from the community. It could be business owners, finance professionals, etc., who come together and actually make decisions about the applicants who get into the incubator. There's a great resource, and I would encourage you all, and we relied on it very, very heavily as we were moving through our feasibility study, and that's the International Business Incubation Association, which just has an incredible number of resources, including, as I recall, one that will even provide you with samples of draft policies and procedures. You'll also want to take a look at what your graduation policy looks like. When is it going to be time for your company that has been in your facility and have grown and created revenues and jobs for them to graduate out into the community? And then finally, the most critical part is what does this all look like in terms of the cost? It's very, very important to kind of do an extensive project budget that's going to identify what your costs are going to be. And I would underscore, make sure that you include at least the first year startup expenses in that budget. We were advised to do that, and that was probably one of the best pieces of advice we got at the time. And along with that, identifying, okay, your project, whatever the total is, what's your fundraising plan for that? What are the potential sources of funding? For new facilities, EDA has been a great partner in New Mexico, the state of New Mexico, local governments, and in our case, the private sector, were all really important and critical parts of our raising the money to build our facility. And clearly you want to develop some, expense and revenue projections going forward in a 3-year pro forma, all by a way of saying, if you get to the end of that process and you haven't answered the question how we're going to pay for it, you may need to back up and take a look at what it is you're planning on doing. And again, are there alternatives to how you might provide some services to incubator tenants that you hadn't thought of before? So I think I'm going to stop there since we're short on time and we want to have questions, and I'll turn it back to you.
Thank you, Agnes. And I do see everyone's questions coming in around the feasibility studies and questions, just more and comments. So we are going to get into those here towards the end. I am just going to try and get our next presenter on the phone, just having a little bit. Josue, I can't find you in the list, so I'm going to call you. Perfect. Let's do it this way. So I had to do this a little bit. Josue, are you there?
I am here.
Great. Well, I'll let you take it away.
Okay, thank you. So thank you for the opportunity to share. I'm flying solo and blind here because my computer, for some reason, just didn't want to download the webinar app. So I hope that I'm following the slides correctly. So thank you. I'm Josue Olivares, the Executive Director of the Rio Grande Community Development Corporation. And we have a private public partnership with Bernalillo County where we operate the South Valley Economic Development Center. And as Agnes mentioned a moment ago, it's critical that the community needs assessment is done before an incubator is launched, because it will provide information regarding the needs of the specific incubator, and also will give the information about if it's feasible or not for that specific local community. But in addition, it will give you a specific needs for your incubator. And one of the most common ones are pre-incubation services. In our incubator, we realized this about 7 years ago, that there was a specific need in our targeted community in the South Valley for the need for this type of program. There's different versions, and if you can see in the slide, the Santa Fe Business Incubator does have a pre-incubation service called Runway. Our is called Semilla, which is seed in Spanish, with that idea of planting the seed and having the beautiful crop after. So what the program that we have, it looks a little bit different than others. It's up to 1 year of program. It's divided in two main sections. One is the viability of the concept. So we have a lot of individuals that brings an idea, or brings just a recipe, or brings just a need for starting a business activity. So in that period, we help the client understand if that concept is feasible or not, and empower that individual to make the decision to launch it. Once they do that decision, we guide on the process on how to launch it properly, ensuring that proper permits are requested, that licenses are correctly secured, and so forth. So that concept takes about, in average right now, about 6 months, but we do have clients that take up to a year. So it's tailored to the need of that individual. So we did realize the need for that, because we did a survey across a couple of areas here in the South Valley, because we want to realize how we could increase participation in the incubation program. And when we were asking questions, there was a lot of feedback about, that's all great, but I don't know how to do a business plan, or I don't even know if this is feasible or not. And that was the reason that we created that program once we realized about that need. So that's one of the most common ones. But also when you do that needs assessment, and that's the next following slide, there's an opportunity to identify targeted industries. In our particular case, what we identified, and our incubator was opened about close to 20 years ago, and the community identified in that needs assessment the food industry and the agricultural industry as a critical industry to focus on. So when we realized that was the intention of the incubator, the design of the space was tailored for that specific need. We have a commercial kitchen. It's a little bit less than 5,000 square feet, with additional storage, cold, freezing, and dry storage for that specific industry. But there's a couple of different things that you have to review when you're developing that target industry, which is ensuring that there's that critical mass necessary to have clients after the first cohort graduates. You don't want to invest literally millions of dollars in equipment and facilities when you don't have that that critical mass to have a client after each cohort. The other important factor that you should consider is also what other services are needed around that specific targeted industry. In our particular case, we realized that distribution services was a critical service in addition to our incubation services, to allow clients really be able to reach a profitability stage in their businesses. Another concept was co-packaging or manufacturing at a higher volume level. It was another very important need that we identified. So depending on the needs of your community and depending on that targeted industry, there might be services that needs to be considered around that specific industry. So those are all of I'm trying to summarize it, all of the things that we have learned through these years. So I'm just gonna stop right there because as well, I know that we're running short on time and we want to allow questions and answers.
Thank you, Josue. I might keep you on the phone here just in case as we go through our questions.
That was good.
Yeah, thank you everyone for your questions. Beth, is it good with you if I just kind of start at the top of the list and we run down?
Yes, ma'am.
So I'm going to wrap these first two questions into one. And we've got, does the state of New Mexico fund business incubators, and what are the best funding sources for incubators that you recommend? And also, what sorts of funding mechanisms do you recommend for the feasibility studies? So I'll pose that to all of our panelists. Marie turned on her camera and jumped on, so she must have, maybe she has the golden answer.
Yeah, I wish I did. I've been doing this 25 years and we're always chasing money. But to the number one federal entity that puts money into building business incubators, whether from scratch or rehabilitating buildings, is the Economic Development Administration of the U.S. Department of Commerce, or EDA. And each Council of Governments and area in New Mexico plus the state has EDA contacts and rep who can talk to you about working with EDA and applying for funds through EDA once you've got the program kind of, or your plans up and going. They have to be pretty well developed plans, and by the time you get that money, so that they know exactly, what you're going to do. A lot of money for business incubators will come from partnerships through a municipality, as in our case, we have a contract with the city of Santa Fe to do this work because it enhances the tax base so much here locally. Some work with counties. I believe Josue's incubator started working with the county there in the South Valley. Others are associated with community colleges or universities, as in Arrowhead or San Juan in Farmington. Very few are standalone. All of us have some sort of public partnership or private partnership that helps build and run the entity and support it ongoing. I will not, I'm sorry, allergies. I will not answer the question about feasibility studies right now if somebody else has ideas on that. Our community found some seed money from the chamber and from the city of Santa Fe to fund our initial feasibility study. I don't know what else, maybe others can talk about that.
Thank you, Marie. But did anyone else have any input on funding mechanisms for feasibility studies? And Beth, would you be able to speak to whether or not the state funds business incubation? I can add that there was $300,000 in annual funding approved by the legislature moving into this next fiscal year. However, how that money will be used for existing incubators and ones that are looking to get certified has not been determined yet.
That's correct, Shani. I don't want to get into go off on another subject, but we received some federal money from EDA, and we are doing a study of business incubation that includes other services that are available statewide and what needs are out there. So that will wrap up this summer and probably inform how that funding is used based on what we learn.
Thank
Next
you, Beth.
question.
Yes, this next question says, first of all, I commend you for your work. Quick question, why do we keep hearing about resilience and adaptation, which are both reactive, instead of don't know if I'll say this right, tropophilia, which is proactive and not only anticipates change, but creates it. Thank you. This is from someone who has already left the webinar. I don't know if anyone would want to jump in and take this, but from what I've seen and where we're positioned, especially like for like my office's role in state government, most of the time it is a pretty reactive environment, and it's kind of what we call putting out fires. There is a lot of effort around trying to move proactively, but when we've got things that happen unexpectedly, wildfires, and these things that kind of come, pandemic, that come and hit business owners without any really real room for preparation, the environment that government ends up working in a lot of the time tends to be pretty reactive. So I would say that the business support organizations and community organizations are the ones that probably have more freedom to act proactively and create that programming a little differently. If no one else has anything to add to that.
I'll add something to that. So I would say for us, we're both. So ideally, we'd like to plan for the long term, right? And we do, but we have to be reactive. Like when COVID hit, our offices completely shut down. So we have to be able to continue providing assistance and programming in a virtual environment. And then for us too, we are heavily reliant on soft funding. So grants, contracts, external funding that's coming in. And so we have to design our programming based on the needs of the funder. And oftentimes that is reactive. They're reacting to something like COVID is a great example. And all of the solutions they are interested in are centered around essentially being reactive. So I think it's both. I'm not sure about the other incubators, but that's kind of how we ideally, and we do plan for the long term, but we also have to be reactive in some sense.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, I'd like to echo that. Actually, it has to be both. Our business incubator was built on spec. We had no idea if this would work really. I mean, we did all the studies we did all the surveys we could. Will it work? It did. We were very lucky, but we also built it in phases. We built only 10,000 square feet to start to see if this would work. And it was really a leap of faith. With all the good intentions and all the money and all the championships and all the feasibility that said yes behind it, it's always a leap of faith. But we were lucky to do it in phases because we built the first one. We had to go ahead and expand because really you don't have enough economy of scale to run a business incubator that's too small without enough activity and rents and so forth. You need a cadre of people and companies, and to have that peer-to-peer benefit from having the companies. But we eventually got to 30,000 square feet. But almost everything we've done has been looking to the future and building for the future. But just like Dana said, our funding, our programs have to react to the needs of the entrepreneurs, the needs of the community, and the needs and focus of the funders that we work with. And I just want to take this opportunity, since I've got the floor right now, to say that there's a lot of help for business incubation and to answer questions. I've been happy to help communities and individuals with questions for many years, to talk about this topic at conferences. Agnes, Josue, Dana, all of the people in this industry are very generous-hearted, very kind, and want to see things succeed, and not see a community get into a bind, but see them succeed and succeed well. So they'll tell you the truth, will help. And the department, Beth Davis picked up the flag on business incubation many, many years ago and has been leading it for the state of New Mexico and for the department for many years, and knows all of the players and so forth. So she is an incredibly good contact at the New Mexico Economic Development Department for everything that's happening in business incubation. And I'll shut up now. Thank you.
Thanks, Marie. I'll pay you later.
So I'm going to jump around a little bit here because I don't know that we'll get to all the questions, but what we will do is take the unanswered questions and pose them to the group. I do see quite a few repetitive questions here about what is the general cost for an incubator feasibility study, as well as if there is a sample for a feasibility study template. Beth, Marie, anyone who's the expert?
The low end is around $20,000 to have a professional do it. It is a good idea to bring somebody in from outside the community, because if people within the community have their own agenda, it's or con, you may not get a balanced review. And you also want to reach into areas of the community deeply that people may not think of. So a professional study, I've seen them at 25 or 30,000. I've seen them as little as 12 or 18. I think 20 seems to be the kind of median. 20 to 25 is sort of the median.
Thank you. Let me move back up the list. Cibola County is in the process of starting up an incubator. Does EDD provide assistance with bylaws, programming, etc., or do you know where this assistance is available? Beth, is that something that we could answer now, or should we address that offline? I don't know that we have anyone in-house who could help with bylaws.
I would suggest that I saw that someone asked about seeing a list of certified facilities again. I would suggest that you reach out to one of our certified facilities, whether it's Josue or Dana, Marie. They're the best experts on this. And no, the department doesn't have any examples of bylaws.
Yeah, and also membership in the INBIA, the International Business Incubation Association, is required as part of certification, by the way, people, because it is the repository of all training, certifying your incubator managers, books, expertise around the country and around the world. About 2,000 incubators belong, and so that's a great organization to find out a lot of information, printed materials, training, etc., on those kinds of details, plus whatever we can share.
Thank you.
We've got about 2 minutes. Let me see. I'm going down the list mostly because I think it's the most appropriate way to address everyone's questions. Oh, I just lost it. Incubators and co-working spaces are usually located in Albuquerque, Santa Fe, and Las Cruces. Is there a way for smaller rural communities to collaborate, since there may be a need that is too small to justify investing in an incubator infrastructure?
There actually is. Fat Pipe is a combination incubator and co-working space in Albuquerque. It was started by Stu Rose, who owns the Bioscience Center. They currently, excuse me, they currently have locations in the East Mountains, Taos, and Rio Rancho. So they do try to get out there in rural areas. Dana, Arrowhead, has also extended its services and works with a lot of other communities. Dana, could you take that? Answer it a little more?
Yeah. So in terms of we're the land grant institution for the state. Every single state has a land grant institution, and so we are tasked with serving the entire state. So we provide services to every single community in the state. And so if you have an interest in bringing programs to your community, please do reach out, because we'd be happy to talk to you. We actually just got some congressional funding to go out to the more rural communities in New Mexico and bring services. So we haven't started that yet. That'll be a little bit later this summer, but that would be a great opportunity for us to provide some very targeted support to you, or even if you just want to talk to us about how to, start up in your smaller community, we're happy to do that as well.
I would also like to add that I mentioned a study that we are undertaking. We're trying to determine what the needs are out there that are not being filled. So I put up my contact information again. If you are interested in starting a business incubator or any kind of program, I would appreciate it if you would email me so we can include you as we undertake our survey of needs.
Thank you, Beth. I see some questions in here about if the PowerPoint will be sent out. I believe so. Also, there'll be a recording of the presentation available afterwards. Let's see.
We have a link to all of our webinars on our website, which is also up on the screen. And they're on YouTube under the New Mexico Economic Development Department. And as soon as I can figure it out, this one will be up there too.
It'll take a little bit to kind of load into the website, and then we'll get that uploaded hopefully before the end of the day. So I have, does EDD recommend using current 7 incubators based on state location, i.e. Jemez Valley area / central northern New Mexico? And from what I understand, I think it'd be based on what the incubator might specialize in. Sometimes they're very tailored to the types of industry. Beth, anything to add to that?
Goodness, not me. Would anyone else like to take that? Marie, Agnes?
Please repeat the question.
Does EDD recommend using the current 7 certified incubators based on state location? So should you reach out to that incubator based on its location?
I wouldn't. I would do it based on what your profile of your community is and what specifically the question you have and how it relates to that particular incubator. I mean, if you're talking about doing an incubator near a college or university, I would talk to Arrowhead or San Juan. If you want one that is specifically focused on an industry sector like biotech, I talked to Stu in the Bioscience Center. For us, you know, just pick whatever makes the most sense to your question and what you're trying to do.
Thank you. Let's see, I think I missed a question here. So we're running over, so I apologize for anyone's time. I think we've got, I'm gonna try and go over 2 or 3 more. Critical to any startup, where do small startups go to develop their prototype / demo model? Many incubators have machining, tooling, fabrication capability to provide rapid prototyping and rapid capabilities. Oh, where do small startups go to develop their prototype and demo model?
We have a fab lab, a digital fabrication lab at our business incubator, and we also partner with the Fab Lab Hub and also with the community college here in Santa Fe. But broadly, the entity that in the state that can offer a lot of help is the Manufacturing Extension Partnership, or MEP. So it varies from community to community. What is available. There are digital fabrication labs and maker spaces. So there's everything from very low tech all the way up to very high tech. But those are, I would talk to MEP if I were trying to get a prototype developed.
Okay. Would you also recommend the Nmsba program at all, or is that for a different sort of focus?
Yeah, I recommend the Nmsba. For anyone who doesn't know, the national labs have a program of technical assistance for small businesses of up to a value of up to $10,000. You have to apply to the national labs. That would be Los Alamos, Sandia. I think the Air Force Research Lab is involved. So any question about chemistry or building an item or statistical analysis that you can think of where the national labs could be useful, and there is not a private sector answer to go to simply and easily, you can apply for this assistance from the labs. About 7 of the companies I work with have taken advantage of it and gotten thousands of dollars worth of expertise to help them with their business.
Thank you, Marie. Okay, I'm going to go one more question. I do see that there's still existing questions in the chat. What I'll do is collate those and get them out to the team that was with us today. And we'll try and get the answers together. And then likely when we send out the presentation and link to the recording when it's all the way up on YouTube, we can follow up with a little Q&A PDF for any of the unanswered questions and questions that were answered. How do businesses that were not surveyed but are in the South Valley get services from the South Valley Economic Development Center? Josue, are you still with us? I'm going to assume that they could just reach out to the office.
Correct. Yes, they can either stop by. We have staff on site. Phone number is 505-877-0373 or at info@sbedc.org.
Beautiful. Thank you. I'm going to thank everyone for their time. I'm not going to drag us into too many questions. We've gone a little over. As I mentioned, we'll collate the Q&A for you. I'll pull all the unanswered questions and make sure we get those into a document. Go ahead and bear with us while we wait for the recording to kind of upload itself to the website. Then we got to get it on YouTube and wait for YouTube to upload it. So I know that there is more questions, so I'm not going to say if there's not any more questions. But thank you all for your time today. Beth, do you want to wrap up with anything else? Or
Please reach out to any of the incubator facilities, or my contact information is up there. There's some information on our website. If you reach out to me, I will get an answer for you, whatever it is, from our experts. Thank you. Thanks for joining us today. And thanks you for being so patient with my total lack of technical ability. Thank you all.
thank you, everyone.